One of the greatest factors leading to the inability of people to think for themselves started with the era of institutionalization. That can be seen going back to the Council of Nicaea, 4th century AD. During that council, various leaders of the then burgeoning Roman Church came together to decide what would become the official canon of Western thought. Backlash against canonization occurred in the 16th century as free thinkers challenged the rigors of institutionalized Catholicism. They founded Protestantism, which later itself became institutionalized as the world drifted away from the religious worldview. Mass education was coming into view, but this too became institutionalized. Eventually, institutions took over as small businesses based on individual and youth-free enterprise were swallowed up by corporate boards and chief executive offices at the time. Such transnational corporations found it easy to influence political leaders in ways that brought about short-term expediency at the expense of long-term sustainability. Government wants the solution, came the problem. Faith in all forms of government dried up. A new era of Gilded Age moguls worked behind the scenes to ensure that people would no longer vote. They had a like-minded foreign adversary succeeded in electing a president and Congress rife with incompetence and political one-upsmanship. By 2020, it became clear to every American citizen that a situation seen in many foreign lands had occurred in their own homeland. Powerful elites use government figureheads to promote ends at odds with the well-being and progress of the people. Wherever political power condensed into the hands of the few, such hands became bound to unseen oligarchs and corporate interests. Like many others today, T.T. Brown and Nikola Tesla were part of an ancient civilization that came to an end after a comet struck the vast glaciated regions of North America, specifically Greenland. At the younger, driest geological boundary 12,800 years ago, just like today, the elites of the period, they lived along the coast while commoners dwelled further inland. But with billions of tons of water locked away in ice and snow on the continents, the coast was much further out in what we now know as the continental shelf. That civilization, called the Atlantean, had its beginning some 75,000 years earlier when more advanced beings originating from Venus created an outpost consisting of both magic and technology on Earth. They taught the masses of the time rudimentary tech and more advanced rudimentary magic. 50,000 years ago, most of the Venusians left their students to preside in their place. By 25,000 years ago, many of those students began to lord it over the masses, and all hell was about to break loose. Not all Atlantean elites remained evil. Some took themselves to task reversing their former course. This required several lives of struggle against the egocentric impulses once dominating them. You might list among this group J. Robert Oppenheimer and Werner Heisenberg. Others completely yielded to the dweller on the threshold, sowing seeds of conflict, exploitation, and abuse throughout the planet. Even this group eventually overcomes such influences, but not first without doing serious damage to themselves, others, in the world. Unlike today, the people of Atlantis were completely unaware of those who came to control their world. In the early era of Atlantis, lasting some 26,000 years, the people were naturally clairvoyant. They saw a golden light coming from above the heads of their enlightened leaders. A golden light, which later became a golden crown, worn by those who would follow, and became the Gilded Age of this and times past. By the time the Dark Ones overshadowed Atlantis, the ability to see golden crowns had been lost to people. All that remained was psychical sensitivity. The whole society was susceptible to manipulation, largely coming from others around them more advanced than them. They were a people lacking intellectual development, easily swayed emotionally by others who physically wore golden crowns, proclaiming themselves to be kings. The goal of the Lords of the Darkness was largely that of controlling the mass through desire. Desire is a way of motivating others by glamorizing things and experiences having no real value. For instance, most of us need no more to get around than a simple car, bus, taxi, whatever. Yet many of us would prefer to drive a car with sex appeal. Responsiveness to sex appeal is a form of magical influence precipitated into the world by the Dark Lords via their agents. Former students of enlightened beings who failed to pass certain tests, administered likely by the Dark Ones. The Dark Ones remain present on Earth even to this day. The 20th century saw them resume their attempt to completely dominate the planet as mass transport and communication undergirded the potential for global civilization. They started by dominating several nations through ego-ridden, occultly influenced leadership. The actual physical war that followed had an earlier cycle in Atlantis. A war that led to no final resolution but swept the culture under the waves of the Atlantic Ocean. Many Atlantean commoners reincarnated in the bodies of those fighting World War II and World War I. There they saw themselves again being sacrificed on the altar of powerful elites, seeing themselves masters of all they surveyed. Occasionally such commoners would come together and throw their weight of influence behind truly inspired leadership, such as that of FDR. But in the main, the elites would have it their way, offering electrical choices between candidates of their own devising. The myth of the 2016 election is that single-issue populists outvoted more comprehensive social progressives in a small number of key U.S. states. The reality is that a small cadre of anti-elitists would vote for anyone to see American society freed from the wealth-concentrating, self-promoting pseudo-philanthropists hiding behind notions of the public good. Such a belighted candidate existed, but that candidate would have to await a future time. The First Atlantean War had not been conclusive. By the 20th century, things began to heat up once again. Benighted elites dominated many advanced societies, while the 1914 war, no good guys or bad, the dark forces took advantage of human ignorance and certain well-placed agents to set things off. Europe was a tinderbox in that unusual state of affairs over the last several centuries. All it took was a series of mutual defense pacts and a bunch of bad decisions following a single spark plug-like event. But there was money to be made in warcraft, munitions and the tools to deliver them, biplanes, ships, tanks, rifles, even helmets and uniforms all held great potential for wealth making. War was good for business. The Second World War was something very different. Treaty of Versailles forced reparations on World War I's losers. This created incendiary economic conditions in Germany. Meanwhile, German occultists consciously invoked the Dark Ones, looking for an immediate advantage to reverse the situation. The masses were receptive. Jews and others became scapegoats to rally the German people. German occultists seized the opportunity to focus the mass intent and plunge an entire nation into conflict with neighbor over resources. German leadership was taken over by a force beyond all reckoning. The Atlantean tendency to fall in line with leaders and the pressure of neighbors was put to bad use once again. Most wars are about resources. In a resource war, one group or tribe aligns itself against another's. The Germans had their tribe, the Aryan race. The Jews, the Poles, Czechs, Russians all had their tribes. The Germans respected the French and English, but still held the grudge of reparations. The West succeeded in overcoming the Axis powers, but not without blowback. That blowback came out of the burgeoning technologies of warcraft. It involved the misuse of intelligence gathering, subversive international intrigues, efforts to dominate the homeland through propagation of mis- and disinformation, and eventually the establishment of a form of corporatized business practice, emphasizing short-term profits over long-term sustainability. It would not be long before the elites among the victors became the focal point of attention for the lords of the dark days. Power, after all, is seductive, and in its wake, everything becomes a race to the bottom. By the turn of the new millennium, intelligent people everywhere could see the bottom approaching fast. By 2020, everyone else could too. By 2045, real light would finally cut through the darkness. You heard it here first, folks. By the turn of the third millennium AD, it became clear to the discerning that the planet was heading toward ecological disaster. Elites began buying islands or other redoubts they could sequester to, just as some had done before the younger Dryas comet strike. Less wealthy individuals began banding together into survivalist communities, hoping to avoid the inevitable breakdown of the once burgeoning supply chains that made life free of agriculture and animal husbandry, while also supplying copious consumable goods, services, and appliances. Where the imagination is in abeyance, people come to think that tomorrow would be pretty much like today. Despite losing tens of millions of human lives, World War II's aftermath soon led to a huge population boom. Globalization meant that limited resources from all over the planet would be needed to support massive cities. Economically, the great God growth was once again believed to solve all problems. Meanwhile, the true cost of economy, uber ecology, would lead from health to sickness, wealth to poverty, purity to despoliation. Millions of species would die, the soil would contaminate, byproducts like plastics and pernicious chemicals would accumulate, temperatures would rise, ice would melt, corporations would offer short-term solutions, such as untested, genetically modified monocrops, accelerating collapse. By the year 2030, there'd be no way to avoid the inevitable consequences of a materialistically preoccupied, overly reproductive human species. having exceeded a barely sustainable population of 2.5 billion in 1950. The 8 billion in 2030 would fall into an animal state as elites sequestered themselves away wherever possible, including the moon and Mars. Had better choices been made, middle-class sapping economic and planet-degrading environmental influences wreaked by multinational corporations would have been reined in by the 21st century. This would have meant that politicians captive with special interests recognize the error of their way. It's easy to see parallels with early 20th century Germany. By 1910, a wealthy elite controlled German society. The German people were goaded into a disastrous First World War. Powerful financial and defense industry interests. In losing that war, reparations undermined any chance for a stable post-World War I economy. Inflation ran amok, goods were hard to find, services underused. A new regime, a new right was needed. A populist leader stepped forward, one promising to regenerate German society. That leader decried methods and aims he himself would later implement and pursue. To do so, a scapegoat was needed, someone obviously different. Such a regime needed to demonstrate its superiority. To feel superior, inferiors are required. The Nazi conspiracy pointed its finger at another conspiracy, the conspiracy of the Jew. Conspirators are very quick to cite others as being conspiracy theorists. Psychological projection is probably the most powerful tool a person can use to indict another. If you are only out for the money and you want to gain an advantage over a competitor in the same buck, say that they are only out for the money. Another important factor facing Nazis was resource depletion. Germany had so much, they needed more. To expand supply, the Nazis had to eliminate demand from others. They also had to annex neighboring lands. This could only be done by pauperizing neighbors and taking that land. War was an acceptable option. Nazi conspirators gained the support of the German people by staging a false flag terrorist attack at the German parliament Reichstag in 1936. Inevitably, such tactics lead to immediate gains and long-term folly. Long-term folly. It's long-term folly. Take shortcuts and it's long-term folly. Arouse the masses using the least common denominator. It's long-term folly. By 2020, it became obvious that numerous deep state cover-ups had led the bulk of the American population to reject every aspect of institutionalization and understood. CIA misinformation sourced through Project Mockingbird had destroyed the electorate's faith in media outlets. Congressional fecklessness driven by neo-libertarians and proxies in Congress destroyed the literate legislature. Appointment of miscreant or ideological judges to the U.S. Supreme Court undermined popular faith in the rule of law. Faith in the rule of law. Police officers shooting harmless men and women of color led to a breakdown in law and order. What happened to law and order? Transnational corporations externalizing costs on people's health and the natural environment. That distrust of unfettered capitalism. Unfettered capitalism. The failure of teachers to do more than teach rote lessons designed to help students pass standardized tests undercut the legitimacy of public education. Big money involvement in the medical profession made it more profitable to keep people sick than healthy. You get the idea. People could trust no one and turned only to those who appealed to their own ideologies and predilections. You get the idea. All this fed into conspiracy thinking and resulting confirmation bias. You get the idea that due to well-deserved public distrust of the media, no one could really confirm anything. You get the idea. 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 You get the notion. You get the sense. You get the commotion. Everything's in motion, and nothing knows where to